Oh shit! It's time. Oh! Get the fist up. Oh, do it. Fist in the camera. Let's do it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Woohoo! Alex can't do it right now. It's all good.
Just one-handed.
Oh yeah, it is time for the next Versus episode. Today we got legends on the panel. Today special guests Rick Myers, Kung Fu Santa in the house. Y'all know who he is. That's right. Yeah. Oh, he's getting ready. He's getting ready. That's right. Kyle Wong. That's right. Frank Zhang. That's right. Master of Remaster. Eric, the Asian movie enthusiast. Wing Chun enthusiast. Martial artist teacher. Alex Richter. How you doing? Welcome first time to the channel. And my brother from another mother, Bobby Samuels, the legend. Started it all. That's right. We got him here. We didn't know we were going to get him today, but today he just came in. He just went at the door, kicked the door in. That's it. We're going to get it going today. Right. And Rick has been on a roll. Rick has been on a roll suggesting these Versus episodes because last week was extremely ridiculously hard for me to pick between Project A and Police Story. It was tough. So he suggested this one today as well for this week. And another really hard one because I love both of these movies. We got the first Ip Man, the original one. In my opinion, still the best one out of the four. That's right. Versus the Prodigal Son, the classic that started it all. And we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, and of course, chat and Movie Dojo Army that's watching right now. Thanks for tuning in. There will be spoilers. Just warning you guys because we like to get in it. These movies been out for a while, so it's all right. We're going to talk about spoilers.
41 years is a while.
Yes. Yes, and then we will vote at the end. It'll be interesting to see who wins today. What film wins today? If you do not mind, I usually read the plot synopsises. Oh, he's gotten both there. That's right. Oh, I have that old one there. I got that DVD.
You mean the Prodigal Son?
Yeah.
They use my English subtitle for this.
Oh, okay.
The English subtitles on this is done by me.
Oh, nice. See, Master of Remaster.
Subtitles on Ip Man because they got the joke right. I mean, they get the joke wrong. We'll talk about that.
Sorry, I'm looking over here. So. All right, Rick Myers, will you give us the honor and the pleasure here of giving us a brief plot synopsis for those that are new here, that are watching on The Prodigal Son, which came out in 1981.
I'm not gonna give you the plot when we have Alex and Frank here.
Okay, let's segue it.
Who wants to do it?
We'll save Alex for Ip Man. Frank. Quick plot synopsis for new people that they have nothing, they don't know anything about The Prodigal Son.
Sure. Well, The Prodigal Son was really about this Liang Chan, played by Yun Bill on the right here, who's like a rich family's son. He's kind of like a spoiled brat, and he's trying to let everyone know that he's like a kung fu master. He knows kung fu. He can fight. When in reality, he hardly knows any kung fu. His dad would pay people money just to have their asses kicked by him, but once he met the Peking opera master played by the great and late Lam Ching-Ying, who I still think this is his greatest role. I mean, I know people love him from Mr. Vampire. I'm sorry, this was Lam Ching-Ying's greatest role. So after, without a doubt, right? Okay,
yeah,
so after Yun Bill has experienced his real kung fu, and then also when the some Qing government official was headed by the guy played by Frankie Chan came down south. Came down south to try to find someone who can fight him because he himself knows kung fu, and got Yun Bill's master involved and got most of the Peking opera troupe. His master's Peking opera troupe members killed. They seek help from this calligraphy master played by the great Sammo Hung. And then there's this nice little rivalry between Lam Ching-Ying and Sammo, but in turn they both benefited Yun Bill because of their rivalry. They ended up both teaching Yun Bill the real Wing Chun Kung Fu, and so that set up this final stage where he would ultimately fight the evil Qing official played by Frankie Chan, who is really not that evil, but I'll talk about him when I give my comments.
All right, awesome. Well said, well put. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with me. We'll go all the way, we'll segue this way, all the way around to Frank, and then we'll end with Bobby. All right? So, man, I think that exact DVD you held up Frank. I think that's the one. That's how I saw the movie. To be honest, it's not like I could. Oh, I'm gonna turn to Channel Fox and watch the Prodigal Son. It's not like that out here. I'm pretty sure that the DVD. I was just at the time. I was really trying to collect a lot of Yuen Biao and Sammo Hung's movies. And I was like, "Oh, what is this? What's the Prodigal Son?" So I bought the DVD, watched it, loved it. It was hilarious. The shit got real at some point, and I was like, "This is kind of fucked up." The movie kind of turned dark there for a little bit, but Sammo's got that good balance of comedy and oh, the shit's getting real. But the fight choreography was great. I loved it. I loved the soundtrack. I still have that soundtrack in my head, that song that repeats throughout the film. And when I got done with it, as soon as it ended, I looked over to my wife and I said, they don't make it like this anymore. And this over time has kind of become, it's this film, I've grown to love it more over time. And this is probably going to go down as one of my favorite martial arts movies of all time. Why? Because I can watch it any day. I can watch it tomorrow. I can watch it the day after. It's just a fun, kick-ass movie. And I'm throwing shade right now. The end finale fight in this movie completely destroys Ip Man's end finale fight. Sorry. There's no comparison. Sorry. So, getting that out of the way right now. Not to say I didn't enjoy the end fight at Ip Man, but there's no comparison. There is none. So, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, in terms of negatives, I can't really find anything negative about the movie. The only thing I can think of is maybe today's modern day audiences may have issues with a few things in terms of like, they don't really understand the culture. Like, what is this opera? Why are they singing and now they're fighting now? What is going on? Like today's younglings is what I'm talking about. Like that, they're probably Kyle. They're probably not going to be, they're probably not going to really know that what's really happening here. In terms of Ip Man, it's nonstop action throughout the film. So it's kind of like the more modern day audience will probably lean towards more of Ip Man. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love Ip Man. If I had to make a top 10 Dunnian movies of all time, Ip Man's going on there. Ip Man's phenomenal. I really enjoy it in terms of an action martial arts flick. But, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what my vote will be at the end. I may go back and forth. We shall see once I get the information and the knowledge that will be shared from the people that's here. But Prodigal Son is great.
False suspense. Your false suspense.
I don't know because we've had guests on here that came in with I'm picking this movie, and then by the end of the panel, after hearing all they had to say, they picked the other movie. So it can happen. All right. So love the movie. Can't really think of anything negative about it. So Kyle, positives and negatives of Prodigal Son.
So I definitely watched this when I was really young too, and that's how my 3-year-old mind could fathom old school kung fu movies. But now that I rewatched it again for this versus episode, it really helped a lot, and especially your book, Rick, helped out a lot more also, because if I'm correct, and please Sifu Alex help out, this was about Lung Zhan, right? The Grandmaster of Chen Ma-shun, which then would teach Yip Man. So definitely that story. And I was like, okay, this is good to see the lineage of how we would go on to, and then even get to which I will dub the Wilson Yip Man universe. Then it goes into all those other universes, which we'll get into later. God damn those fucking universes. Ugh. This is why I hate cinematic universes. But when I started watching this with fresh eyes even more, I started appreciating Yuen Biao as like not even just being a rascal, just being that top, like kind of egoistic, like I'm a top fighter, no one could stop me. And then when you get to Wong Tai, the Peking Opera Wing Chun master, and he beats him, he doesn't. Yuen Biao's character just really feels very defeated but humbled at the same time when he just gets knowing that revelation that his father just paid off everyone, and you're just wondering like, how is he going to learn? and the fact that he keeps bugging Wong Tai throughout the Peking opera up until when it gets destroyed, you just feel that journey and wondering, when are you gonna train me? And then he gets to Sammo Hung's character, and even Sammo Hung's character is like teaching his daughter, like, yeah, I want you to train, but she doesn't want to train. But here's Yuen-Biu's character wanting to train too, and yet Wong Tai won't train him, and it just really felt like I understood that kind of mindset of how you want to train, and one master doesn't want to let anyone know what the style is, while another one is willing to share that knowledge. But even like impressing that onto like his own like family lineage, it really does not like resonate in more of a modern way of like, we want to teach you this, but you have to carry it on. But one person will not like teach it because it's like it's not allowed in certain areas, but them kind of understanding together, especially taking jabs at each other during the training montage, it's like, oh, this is how you're supposed to fight. This is how you're supposed to fight. But he fuses it together to make like his own Wing Chun in the end, and just understanding that just to adapt every kind of style and make it your own style. It really resonated a lot more as a martial artist, and even now as a film audience member now for me. And I was like, this really shows that kung fu journey for that one character, for Yuen-Biu's character. And trying to think of any negatives would be like his servant. I think the servant, just as much as he tries, like, man, he takes a beating a lot, but really him just paying off everyone just to make his master look good. I was like, man, I don't know what will happen to you, but geez, you're just creating trouble for him that doesn't work out in the end. But I think that's the only negative. But really, this film was very humbling to watch with fresh eyes again, and I really love it.
Awesome. Rick,
Kyle, that's
Prodigal Son.
Kyle, that is a terrible detriment. No, that's the flaw you had with it was not a flaw. That was part of the plot. This movie I thought was absolutely extraordinary. It was very unusual, even at the this is my copy of it, which
nice.
is, I'm not sure which version of it's a Fortune Star. There we go. That's the one. But you have the sleeve, which yours.
Yes.
Oh, good. So we're similar. Anyway, it's an extraordinary movie. I consider it not even possibly Sammo Hung's greatest directorial accomplishment. Sammo, like someone else we can probably discuss a little later tonight, has a tendency to sabotage himself for whatever reason. He's in competition with Jackie all the time, and Jackie can make straightforward movies that hold together, while Sammo rebels against that. This is probably his most consistently and best designed film, and it's so much more mature than most of the other films that he's done, because putting it into the Peking opera environment, and also talking about that specific kind of performer in Peking opera, a man who plays the female characters in Peking opera because women weren't allowed to do it. There's a whole Choi Hark movie called Peking Opera Blues about 3 women who are trying to get into Peking opera and are not being allowed. So the fact that he's concentrating on that, also taking his brother, his martial brother, Lam Ching-Ying, and giving him this role. And Lam Ching-Ying, who was, I believe, also in Enter the Dragon and many other movies, he steps up. He's always been a consummate performer. This is a great performance. This is an extraordinary performance. The whole thing is literally remarkable. And then we get to the section. First, it's about fathers and sons. That servant is not paying off these people because he wants to. It's because his master, Yuen-Biu's father, is ordering him to do so. And his father, unlike the other father who we will meet, Frankie Chan's father, is doing it so he doesn't want his son hurt. He would rather lie to his son. I mean, this is already so many levels deeper than virtually anything else Sammo has done, as good as Sammo is. But the plot is so much higher and above everything else. Then we get to Sammo. Now, Sammo, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, because I hear a lot of other people, and I've heard a lot of other people talking about this before we did this episode, when I shared your Facebook post, people have responded to me and said, that's the funniest comedy I ever saw. And it's funny, I didn't remember a lot of the comedy. I remembered the incredible drama and the amazing plot line. The comedy I remembered was the Sammo sequencing, where he does that, he does all the paintings and stuff on the wall. Also very unusual for Sammo. To first cast someone who could be legitimately considered someone who looks like a member of his family. Normally he would, cast some Hong Kong starlet in this sort of thing. And also he treats her with respect, which was very rare for Sammo with female characters. So, but he couldn't play it straight. He had to push the comedy a little further. Up until that moment, this movie had verisimilitude coming out of its ass. I mean, it was so authentic. It was so believable. All the dramatic stuff, all the character interaction was right on the money, totally believable. Building. And then we get to the Sammo scene. And we have the farting sequence. And we have the funny, portrait sequence. And we had things that weren't as realistic. Everything else was incredibly realistic. I'll let Alex talk about the Wing Chun. I thought the Wing Chun was just kind of like head and shoulders above everything else of all the other Wing Chun I'd ever seen. And again, the brilliant thing with the fathers and the sons and then the two brothers, because Sammo and Lam Ching-Ying were brothers. So they taught the yin and the yang of Wing Chun to Yun Biao. Oh man, as you can tell, I could go on. It's just a brilliant movie. You will never be able to guess what I'll vote for at the end. And now I am tired of hearing about me. I want to hear what Alex has to say. Take it. Kung Fu Genius.
All right, Alex. Positives and negatives, if there's any.
For me, it's mostly positives about this movie. Like everything Rick said on the story side and the dramatic side, there's nothing I could say that could add to that. That's 100% the way I feel about this film. It's definitely Sammo Hung's best constructed movie, both dramatically and the action scenes. I mean, it won, the Golden Horse for action choreography that year. And it was nominated for Best Film as well. So, I mean, it was really quite a stunning film. On the Wing Chun side, it's Sammo Hung's second attempt to do Wing Chun formally in a film. His first one was Warriors 2. And this one is definitely a lot more. Yeah, there you go. Rick's got the Warriors 2. And it's definitely a lot more polished in terms of the Wing Chun choreography. The Wing Chun training sequence in the midsection is very funny how you have both of them kind of pitting against each other, both Sammo Hung's Wong Hua Bo character and Lam Ching-Ying's Leung Yi Tai kind of going back at it with the competing ways to present Wing Chun. And that's really funny to kind of see them both go at it and have Lam Ching-Ying teach it in a more formal, traditional way. And Sammo kind of go a little bit more into the kind of freestyle way of interpreting it for himself. It's really amazing. Like that whole dynamic is really, really fantastic. And the first time I saw this movie was on the big screen. I saw it in the Varsity Theater in Seattle, and it blew my mind to see this on the big screen when the opera troupe when the whole opera is being burned by by the disciples of the bad by God's eye. Yeah, and there's a scene where Lam Ching-Ying does the handsprings and then flips over the flaming flag. To see that on the big screen is so unbelievably impressive. It blew my mind. And that entire movie it changes very dramatically, as was mentioned before. It gets very serious when that opera troupe is murdered, and then suddenly the film just goes 180 and you have this like really funny calligraphy scene. It says "I love Daddy" in Chinese, which is just so funny. The final calligraphy. It's just like it's such a change of pace from the first kind of act of that film. And then the final fight scene, just like when he has to get revenge because his Sifu was murdered. And even though the enemy, Frankie Chan's character, he is also a prodigal son. He is also a Baigazai, but of a different type. You know, like he actually had martial arts skill, but his protectors were making sure he didn't run into anyone who would be better than him, in the way that Yi Dongchoi, his assistant, played by Chan Long, was worried about the same thing, but clearly just paying people to lose, knowing full well that he had no fighting skill. But they were actually both prodigal sons. The difference is that Yun Biu's Leung Chan had a character arc, and by the end he had changed. He realized that through hard work he had become a very different person. He could have hit his head when he found out he didn't know any martial arts, but he went the other way and really wanted to learn it, and showed his pluck in constantly badgering Leung Yitai to teach him until he finally did. So he has a beautiful character arc there at the end, and has the chance to kill Frankie Chan's character at the end, but then stops and then flips him off and sends him to the west. And what an awesome ending. And A Prodigal Son for me is not just one of my favorite Wing Chun movies. The choreography is very authentic and everything else, but it's hands down one of my favorite kung fu movies. It's very difficult for me to find others that are as equal with story, pacing, and action. So I mean, perhaps the smallest negative, which is just because I'm a Wing Chun snob, is that Yun Biu his fight choreography wasn't as authentic to Wing Chun in the final fight scene as it was a little bit earlier in the film, and some of the other fight scenes where I thought Lam Ching-Ying made Wing Chun look very operatic, and the way that he moved is just that fight scene there with Frankie Chan where he tests him on the bridge there I get goosebumps when I watch that still. And so that is hands down one of my favorite bits. I felt that the final fight scene could have been a little bit tighter in terms of the Wing Chun choreography, but it's so amazingly good that I give it a pass. I'm like, it doesn't matter to me. It's just a well-constructed final fight scene. Blows Yun's final fight scene out of the way for sure. Totally agree with you, Preston, on that one.
Yay.
And so, as I like to say, that's all I got to say about that.
All right. All right.
I just want to make two quick notes. Number one, Alex, those earbuds never work. Headphones, or just do it through the computer, because you have to keep doing that, and it looks like science fiction. Actually, you reminded me that I saw the movie at the Sun Sing Cinema under the Manhattan Bridge in Manhattan, so I saw it first on a really big screen, and also you reminded me something else I wanted to point out. My favorite kind of action sequences when everyone fights in character. Of course, Lam Ching-Ying was going to make it Peking opera style because he's a Peking opera performer. So it was just more gloriousness. Now let's move on to Asian enthusiasm.
Eric, go for it.
Yes. Yeah, first time I saw this movie, it was on DVD, probably about 15 years ago or so. And first time I saw it, I was kind of getting into this type of thing, these types of movies a little bit more. And I don't think I appreciated like the opening, especially the opening half an hour. I was kind of waiting for the first big fight to hit. Whereas this time, I went into it and I did appreciate like even the concept just from somebody who doesn't even know anything about this stuff would be interesting, because the whole concept of Yun Biu's character who is fighting these dudes who are just tanking intentionally when they fight him, and he has no idea, and he thinks he's so much better than he actually is. It's just interesting from a story perspective. And I did actually enjoy some of the humor early on. Like you get those two guys right at the beginning. They're almost like you can tell they're intentionally selling it, almost acting bad in terms of what they're doing. They're like, hey, I want to find a really good fighter. I think we should fight this guy. This guy I heard is really good. And then they lose to him. And the guy I really liked in the beginning was the older gentleman who broke the brick. because
Yeah.
he was the smart one. He's like, I'm
Wuma,
going to make
Wuma.
myself
Yeah,
seem great
Wuma, yeah.
so that I get paid to not fight him. And that I thought that was actually really, really cool little subplot there. And when Lam Ching-Ying shows up, because at the beginning of the movie, I'm like, you're like, oh yeah, Yunbyo can't really fight that well, but he looks pretty good here, in the opening. And then when you get the Lam Ching-Ying fight in the middle, and you're like, whoa, I guess he's not that good. And I kind of like how they did that, because that middle fight's the first one where it really elevates in terms of action quality and fighting quality. And then another thing that I found really interesting is that during the ninja style assassination scene, I was sure the first time I saw this, I'm like, oh, Lam Ching-Ying, he's dead. He's dead in this scene. He's done. But he survived, which I found surprising from a plot perspective, just from, watching all these movies. A lot of times the master will die a little bit early on, and then the apprentice will train to avenge him. But that doesn't happen here. Lam gets killed near the end of the film, which I found kind of an interesting change up. And then, and then Sammo shows up almost around the 1 hour mark, really. I mean, you don't see... I think the first time I saw this, I didn't even know that he was actually acting in the film, and it kind of surprised me. But then when he comes in, it takes on that extra dynamic. I like the dueling master type of philosophy thing going on. So that's the good thing about doing these versus episodes, because you go back and you look at it from a little bit of a different, more mature perspective, and you appreciate a lot of this stuff more. So I really enjoyed this one a lot more, even on my second viewing here. So it's good stuff.
Nice.
Another quick point. The more you know, I've been saying for a long time now that the limitations of great martial art and kung fu movies around the world is the limited knowledge of the filmmakers, and also now the limited knowledge of the viewer, because those characters in the opening were clear Cantonese comedy characters that Sammo was including to lull the audience, because this movie is so much more mature than virtually all of his other movies. So he put in the first half hour stuff that his audience would recognize, and then he starts making it better and surprising and adding layers. Just incredible. Frank.
God, where do I begin? I mean, first, I gotta say, the screenplay by Sammo and Barry Wong is just fantastic. I mean, almost every single character is so multi-layered, right? And they're all memorable. They all have the flaws. They all have the virtues, and the dialogue is good. It's funny. I mean, I remember translating this originally for Tai Seng, and then the Wei Bai's character was cheating on this guy's wife, so they went to the opera house to try to beat him up, and then one of the henchmen asked, well, how do we know who's the guy? And then he said, well, he plays God of Quan, so you see somebody who's God of Quan, kick his ass. I mean, like this that kind of humor, I really enjoy it. But then the fights, I mean, like you have, no less than 10 fights in the first 40 minutes alone, big and small. Right, and then you get to the major fighting in the middle, with Yunbyo and Lam Ching-Ying fighting, and then later on that amazing assassination sequence, which Stephen Chow actually referenced it in Forbidden City Cop when they were trying to dissect the alien. It's the same, that was his homage to that scene, and and like Andy mentioned about the flag, the burning flag. I mean, those are all standard Peking opera routine, but he just added this element of danger of the fire. I mean, that's just astonishing to watch. And also, just so you know, even though yes, this is all the the singing, the costume, and all that, those are Peking opera. In the film, they were actually singing Cantonese opera style. Just so you know, because obviously this was Hong Kong film, Hong Kong production at that time. They really have to keep it in the Cantonese language. But then with Peking opera, obviously you can't, because they were singing Pekingese. So although they were doing Peking opera stuff, the singing itself, all the singing, the arias, they're all Cantonese opera arias, just so you know. But still. And then you have, Frankie Chan, who like Andy said, he's the other prodigal son. They're yin and yang, him and Yunbyo were yin and yang. And And what I love about the final fight sequence, I mean the choreography. We don't even have to talk about the choreography. I mean, they're amazing. I personally learned Wing Chun for 2 years, and I remember asking my Wing Chun sifu. This is back in high school, and I asked my Wing Chun sifu. So when will I get to learn this, right? We're still doing all this stuff, right? All this, Siu Lim Tao stuff, right? This is called simple idea, little idea. So anyway, so I asked the sifu, like, when can I start doing all these blocking hands? He said, oh, in about your 5th year, So, but to be able to see like these moves performed so authentically is just pure joy to watch. They're all doing great. These are all great Wing Chun moves, and I agree with Andy. The final fight is not 100% Wing Chun, but it's still exciting to watch. And the ending, I love how it was resolved. To have him being legitimized by Frankie Chan, saying that you're good. So he got his he got his vindication. That's all he needs. He didn't need to kill him, even though he did kill his master, but not him. Frankie Chan's this good or vulnerable side to him, so he's not like a complete villain. As mostly the people surrounding him that's trying to carry out these evil deeds. But then that's all he needs, a vindication that I'm good now. I'm a real Wing Chun fighter.
Frankie was a victim too, remember, and Frankie's the one who actually killed the guys who killed Lan Ching-Ying.
Right.
He didn't order it. They did it against his wishes, and he killed them both.
Right. And then, like I said, like that first 40 minutes, the 45 minutes, you have Quen fight, and Samuel didn't even show up yet. Right? And then Sam will show up, and then again, like Rick said, the female character, his daughter in the film, was actually treated with respect and decency, even though she looked like the female version of Eric Zhang. But to have have scenes of him teaching the daughter kung fu, that was pretty good, And I've mentioned before, Eastern Condos will always be my favorite Sammo Hung movie. Right. And the only reason this is not is just because to me, one, there wasn't enough Sammo. Two, I think he played too much for the laugh, the comedic effect, like Andy mentioned. It was a little bit too exaggerated. And third, he never fought anybody. He did all the training. He trained Yun Bill. He had a little spar with Lan Ching-Ying. But I would love to see Sammo fighting someone in this film. That didn't happen. Still, that did not in any way diminish my love for the film. I think this is a fantastic film. To me, this is almost like if Sammo Hung was with Shaw Brothers, this would be his Shaw Brothers film. There's this Shaw Brothers feel to it that always somehow reminded me of like Dirty Hole. Maybe it's the Qing Dynasty setting, and all that. But like some of the sets even look like the Shaw Brothers set. But yeah, I mean, this is fantastic stuff from beginning to end.
Yeah. You notice, there's no Sammo on the cover. It's not a Sammo movie. It's a Sammo written It's a Sammo directed written movie. He was also, I just want to say, I like the ending because it led to one of the most important things that Bruce Lee said, which is learn everything you can from everyone you can, then make it your own. He wasn't going to fight like Lan Ching-Ying. He wasn't going to fight like anybody else. He finally developed Yun Fu. He did his form. So I like that. I thought that was satisfactory.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I love how how he tried to introduce more of these peeping opera elements in the film with the makeup, like talk about guys playing female characters because women are forbidden. I mean, like as a Hong Kong audience, they all knew this, right? I mean, for us growing up, knowing this stuff, I used to go to see live speaking opera in Hong Kong with my dad. So to me, this is like second nature. This is all knowledge. I already knew this, but to see this, play out that way for general audiences is again very nice. Good to see. So
nice. Before we move to Bobby, I got one question for you, Frank. All right. Now, I assumed this meant go fuck yourself, but the thumb in the middle of the fist.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I assumed.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that. At that time, that was the Hong Kong way of giving someone the finger. This is basically the penis between the vagina, right? Like this, yeah. So, at that time, no one knew how to give the actual finger. That's how to them. This is how they give the finger. So it's only until folks started seeing more of this in American shows or movies that they realized, oh, this is how you give the finger. oh, just like this. You know?
Yeah.
Or this.
So, yeah, so that's the way. So now everybody, in other words, the younger generation nowadays wouldn't even know what this means. Because this was like from our like when we were growing up, this is how we get people to think.
Right.
And-
Yeah, because me and
and-
my buddy, after we watched the movie, me and my buddy, we do this to each other all the time. Or the Lam Ching-Ying t-shirt flip that he was doing. Shirt flip, yeah.
I want to say in Love on Delivery, the best dolly shot scene is Uncle Tot and Stephen Chow giving that scene, like fucking they're doing that repeatedly. It's the best scene ever.
Oh, it was
Also,
pretty funny.
you reminded me, Frank, Marshall Club, La Young's movie, came out in 1981 as well, along with Prodigal Son. And I'm also fairly certain that Samuel was inspired by what Jackie was doing during this period as well, because they were always in competition. And this is why I think Samuel gave up afterwards, because he couldn't beat him. He just couldn't beat Jackie.
And don't forget, this film did win the Best Action Choreography at the first Hong Kong Film Awards.
Well,
The first one.
Nice. Beautiful.
Bobby!
All right. Bobby.
Hey, all right. Well,
Positives and negatives on the movie.
positive and negatives. Very little negatives. Pretty much all positive. I mean, this film, it had an indelible impression upon me. I mean, for its purity, its traditional Peking opera aspect, how they illustrated it. As Rick stated, it was probably one of Samuel's most purest films to date. Peking opera blues, man, one of my favorites from back in the day. Again, it evoked that type of emotion. I guess I kind of viewing it when I was younger, when it first came out. Actually, I was in high school, and viewing it later in life, I kind of got a different feel because, I guess I've been blessed because I've actually worked with those actors. I did Gambling Ghosts with Lam Ching-Ying, and we would always talk about this movie on set. And he took me to lunch a couple of times. So I guess I view the film differently now as I watch it, and I see a lot of other actors and the action motifs. Zhong Fa, he's another one. He was in Gambling Ghosts with me. An outstanding martial artist. James Tien, Bruce Lee's friend. He was in Gambling Ghosts with me, as well as he was in that film. So I kind of view it differently now because the anecdotes that I have are personal from actually working with them on several films. So, but I did remember asking Samuel, I was like, because when I first saw Lam Ching-Ying on the set of Gambling Ghosts, I'm like, oh my God, that's him. That's the guy, Prodigal Son. And Samuel was like, let me tell you something. He said, he's the best Hong Kong stuntman ever. Like, he is that good. He was that famous. And I'm like, wow. He said, oh yeah, Bruce Lee adored him. And he said his Wing Chun is extremely good. In fact, he told me, he said, for Golai Hong, Mina, when he was training for Eastern Condors, he told me that he only wanted Mina to train with Lam Ching-Ying the entire time. So Lam Ching-Ying actually trained Golai Hong for Eastern Condors. And I felt that was a very interesting anecdote. Yun Biao, I mean, I saw him every day for years because he was under contract with Bojang like me. Again, the quintessential performance from him. I remember when I first met him in the office and I was like, man, I talked to him. I said, Prodigal Son, that was one of my favorites. He says, you like? I said, yeah, I love the film. He said, you're strong, Bobby. You're strong. I said, I'm not as strong as you. He was like, and he put his hand on my stomach. He said, one punch? And you know me, I'm trying to prove myself. I said, yeah, give me one punch. And then Yun Biao, I mean, he just was like this and balled his fist and went, pow. Now, I acted like nothing was wrong, but I will tell you that I was ready to throw up. It was incredible. I mean, you felt the energy come from him, from that punch. Just listening to the stories about how they actually learned in the Peking opera in relation to the film, it was true to form. So it was really not a big stretch for them because that's their roots. But I felt like Prodigal Son was probably, for me, I can't say it's not my all-time favorite, but it is up there in my top 5. My all-time favorite, I would have to kind of agree with Frank. It's Eastern Condors. I love that film for some reason. I'm a big military movie fan, and I just felt like that movie, and just to see Yuen Ping in there, and just so a cast of just anybody who's who in there, Dick Way, you name it. And I just felt like Sammo, he lost all that weight for that film. He got very sick too, losing all that weight, he told me. And that's actually where he had some injuries as well. The big injury he got was on Shanghai 13. That was his was that Millionaire? Yeah, yes, where he rolled down the mountain with the snow. He messed his shoulder up pretty bad. And how I know that, we were sparring one time on Momi Bay, and I hit him and I twisted his arm. He's like, ah! And then that's when he shared with me that story. But again, like I say, Prodigal Son versus, I'm kind of leaning. I understand the contemporary Wing Chun aspect of Ip Man and the commercialization and the franchise. I mean, it's like, to me, it's like the Fast Five of Kung Fu movies. You just keep them coming, Fast and Furious.
I'm not the only one that thinks that.
It's really what it is, Finally, they got a franchise like that that's just popular. I just feel like for traditional sake and purity, from my era when I grew up and when I appreciated martial arts film, Sun Sing Theater, 42nd Street, New York, I would have to go hands down with Prodigal Son. And Rick, I do miss our commentary days, and I do hope that one day we can get back on it. I remember me, you, and Frank. Wow, it was amazing. So this kind of, I like this camaraderie we got here discussing these two films.
Well,
and again,
let me
examine it from a different point of view because I actually know these guys.
Let me embarrass Frank in public by saying the real dream team for an audio commentary, especially on something like Prodigal Son, especially from the person who lived with Sammo Hung and was Sammo Hung was your mentor. The dream team would not be me and you or me and Frank. It would be you and Frank.
Oh, God bless. Thank you so much.
Frank. Keep that in mind, Frank. I'm going to be promoting that. And if you want to get in touch with Sammo, in case you would ever want to use Sammo for audio commentary, it would be through Bobby. It would be through me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's keep that in mind. I'm saying it in public now to embarrass you.
My lips are sealed, but we'll
make
talk.
it happen.
Well,
Make it happen, Frank.
Got it in your mind. It's planted.
And I just want to say again, I don't know one more thing. Lam Ching-Ying, I like I mentioned before. I don't care what people say. People know him from Mr. Vampire. This was his greatest role, definitely, without a doubt.
Hands down. The purity, the preciseness of the technique that he was using. Even Frankie Chan's style against it. I mean, it was just amazing. I've never seen it done like Lam Ching-Ying. I mean, a lot of people do it. Even Donnie has his own, how can I say it, his own signature moves with Wing Chun. But again, it's contemporary. It's for this generation. And okay, for this generation, I'll accept Ip Man 1. Let me say that again. Ip Man 1. That's where the pure aspect of the franchise was. When you kept going, moving up, I just felt as though it got a little gimmicky in certain areas. It's and the denigration of Lo Mang, who is one of my been utilized a little bit more in all of the films. It seemed to me that in Ip Man 1, 2, and 3, it got progressively worse for him. All the way to the point where in episode 4. He stepped in the ring, got punched in the mouth, and it was over. It almost took a comedic turn for him, and I just felt like that didn't work, So I brought him over to America, and he did Made in Chinatown.
Well,
there you go.
Wait a minute. We're going to be getting to Ip Man soon, but also let me say, viewers, listeners, watchers, if you want to see the art of Kung Fu acting, in other words, Donnie does Kung Fu choreography. But you want to see how an actor will elevate a Kung Fu movie through how they fight, how they act while they fight. You look at Lam Ching-Ying in this, or you look at Anthony Wong in Ip Man Final Fight. And Anthony Wong knows virtually no Kung Fu, really.
Yeah.
But he's amazing.
And I got one better. Lao Gayan, Leon Gayan. No Kung Fu, just knows how to imitate it. It's incredible. I couldn't believe it.
Great acting too. Just amazing acting.
Yeah.
We're moving on to Ip Man
in
now.
the
What?
In The Victim. Yeah.
Yes.
In
Oh,
the
yes.
victim, Sun
Beardy.
He didn't.
Beardy.
Okay.
He didn't know any kung fu. It was all choreographed.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
insane.
mean, it's insane.
Yeah, he's good. But yeah, AKA Beardy. His little nickname, Beardy. Gotta love Beardy.
He's on the shirt too. He's on the-
Oh, yeah, Warriors
Yeah.
too. That's right. That's right. He was in that.
So
Well
so
said, Bobby.
Are we voting
Well
now?
said.
Or
No, not yet. We gotta go. We'll
Okay.
go through Ip Man and then we'll vote at the end. But yeah, this is great. This is great, insightful
Gotcha.
stuff we're getting here today. But yeah, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. The end finale fight is great. It is just, it's just. This is what martial arts movies are all about. It's phenomenal.
No,
And
this is what kung fu movies are all about. Not martial arts.
martial arts.
Kung fu.
Kung fu.
Listen to the Santa.
But yeah,
You know,
it's phenomenal. Did
one-
anybody feel sorry for James Tien's character? Are we gonna get another?
No.
Are we gonna get another movie? We're gonna get backstory. You're gonna get a short on James Tien's character. Poor guy. You broke my arm. I trained 5 years with this arm. Gets this arm broke. All right, now go train your legs for the next 5 years and then come see me. I was like, God damn it. But it was a great scene, though. It was a great scene, but it was hilarious at the same time. But yeah, let's go ahead and get to Ip Man. Oh, he's got is that DVD, Blu-ray? What do you got there, Rick?
It's a DVD.
All
Mine is
right,
the
all
Hong
right.
Kong version with the first two films.
There you
Man
go.
1 and 2.
Nice. All right, Alex, plot synopsis for people who do not know what the film is about. Ip Man 2008.
Well, Yip Man 2008, sometimes called IP Man by people who don't know, is a fictional story about someone who actually existed. And it basically tells the story of Yip Man before he came to Hong Kong, which was in 1949. So it basically tells a tale of his struggles in China and Phat and kind of Second World War China, and kind of builds his legend a little bit. And, you know, at first he's just a very skilled local Kung Fu master who doesn't teach, but he's better than those who are actually teaching in Phat. So he develops a bit of a reputation. He has closed door fights with some of these other masters, which he very respectfully keeps the results silent because they always lose to him until one, young person hops over the fence and sees one of these fights and sees that Yip Man basically bests the Sifu of his brother and then lets the word out. And then Yip Man's reputation slowly starts to grow, but he doesn't want to take any students. And eventually the film takes a very different turn after he has an epic challenge fight with Louis Fan Siu-Wong, who plays a northerner, speaking fantastic Mandarin in that film, doing a good job.
Not his voice, though. Not his voice.
Yeah, which is what I figured, because he's from Hong Kong, and normally you can always tell when a Hong Kong person speaks. My wife is from Hong Kong, and you can always tell when she speaks Mandarin. She speaks it with a Hong Kong flavor, and so usually when the Mandarin is really tight, there's usually another voice actor involved. So their fight scene was really amazing, and basically at the end, Yip Man has this fantastic line. He says in Cantonese, basically, it's not about northern and southern fist. The problem is yours. And it was very philosophical in that moment. And then right after that, the evil Japanese come and take over. And the story kind of changes a little bit. And he has his struggles with the Japanese. And the story makes it seem like he left China because of the Japanese, but he actually left because of the communists, because he was a member of the Kuomintang party. But we're not going to talk about that. It was the Japanese all along. And so he, at the end of the movie, he's on his way to Hong Kong to start essentially the only period of his life that we know anything about. Very little is known about Yip Man pre-1949. It's mostly just dribs and drabs from what we've heard. Most of what we know about Yip Man is about his time after he came to Hong Kong in 1949. So the story is mostly fiction, but in my opinion, it's the best of all the Yip Men movies.
Yes.
As Bobby said before, I think every film, although this is not about those other films, but it is by far a superior film. A lot of people gush over the second one. I thought the second one was terrible. I thought the first...
You mean Rocky IV?
Yeah, Rocky IV.
No, he broke
Saw the
up a little
third-
bit.
Uh-oh. There you go.
What about
Go
now?
ahead.
Is it better? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
I saw the second one once. I got through it once. I saw the third one with Rick once. And I saw the fourth one once. And it felt like one too many for those films. But the first one I can watch again and again. It's really enjoyable. The Wing Chun is very authentic. I wish Donnie Yen would speak with a Phat accent and try to make himself look a little bit older. But alas, he is Donnie Yen in a Cheong-sam playing Yip Man, and that's kind of what you get. So that's basically the story.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll pass it to me here. So 2008, two big movies came out that year. Iron Man and The Dark Knight. That's right. Two big films came out there. If I was able to, if I had the opportunity to watch Ip Man that year, I didn't get a chance to watch it till later because obviously, like I said earlier, it's not like we can go turn it to Channel Fox and watch the newest Donnie Yen movie. Okay. That Ip Man would have been one of my favorite movies of 2008, hands down, if I've seen it when it came out. A year later, a buddy of mine, he's like, "Hey man, have you seen the IP Man?" That's what he said. So you're right.
Intellectual property man.
I was like, "What are you talking about? The IP Man? What are you talking about?" He's like, "That's Donnie Yen, martial arts." Well, I love Donnie Yen. So what is this? He's like, "Man, it's awesome, bro. I copped the bootleg, son. I got me the bootleg. Here you go." I was like, "No, I don't need the bootleg. Let me go ahead and try to find it." So I'll take your word for it. I trust the guy. I was like, "All right." So I got a chance to order the DVD off a website, watched it, loved it. Oh man, it scratched the fucking action itch. I loved it, and I love the soundtrack. I love the suspense building, and it's just, the 10 karate fighters fight against Donnie Yen was so badass and so amazing and brutal, and the story-wise, the plot leading up to that, you were all in. You're like, oh man, let's see what's going to happen. It's not like you weren't not interested in what's going on. And the fighting was so good and so brutal and fast, and the music, I loved everything about it, that after that 10, versus 10 karate fighters fight, none of the other Ip Man sequels topped that, in my opinion. None of them.
Correct.
And all the other Ip Man fight sequences in those movies are good. They're not bad. There's some good shit in those sequels. But in terms of like you're interested in the story, what's going on. You're interested in the characters, what's going on. The music was perfect. The fight choreography was great, brutal, badass. You remember it, and it's like you just show people that fight. You got to watch this movie. Here, just sit down. I know you're trying to leave. Just sit down and watch this. And then they're like, oh my God, I got to watch that later, right? None of the other Ip Man sequels made a fight sequence that topped that 10 karate fighter fight. It's phenomenal. It's brutal. But I enjoyed the film. I liked the characters. I enjoyed the ending. I enjoyed everything about it. Like like I said, if I make a top 10 Donnie Yen list, this would go on there. Movies list. This would definitely go on there. But I'm going to be honest. The Yen fight, even though it was authentic, according to Alex, which is fine that it's authentic, it was kind of a letdown. What did the other guy get? 3 hits. I think he literally only got 3 hits on Donnie Yen. And it's just like, come on, man. Like, let's give our hero a little bit of an issue here. Let him struggle a little bit. And it was kind of short. It was kind of over. But other than that, that's a nitpick, though. That's a nitpick. Other than that, it's still entertaining to watch, and I really enjoy it a lot. Top 10 for me. All right. The Kung Fu Rascal, IP Man.
So, first, I'm gonna throw the backstory to either Rick or Frank or Bobby about how this whole film came together. So I'm not gonna explain how it originally was Wong Kar-wai's property and then it became Mandarin Films property. I'm gonna let one of you three to explain that history, because that history was just 10 years later, finally it comes into Donnie Yen and Wilson Yip's hands. It's yeah, we're gonna make this film. So I'll let one of you guys decide who's gonna talk about that.
Didn't make that Yip Man film though.
Yeah, he did. In 2012, we finally got to make it, but he held that.
Introduced it. Let me quickly say that this film, the Donnie Yen film and Wilson Yip film, was made because they heard that Wong Kar-wai was doing a Yip Man film. So just like, Enter the Ninja, they were going to do the big ninja movie by the guys who produced Jaws, and then in came Cannon, and they did their quick little knockoff.
First move advantage.
Yeah, they were taking advantage of it. It's not like anybody owned Yip Man. Anybody.
Right.
I remember it was like the title itself, Grandmaster Yip Man. It was like supposed to be Grandmaster Yip Man for this film, and then they couldn't use that title because Wong Kar-wai had that one. But aside from that, I remember seeing the trailer for this because I was on a Donnie Yen kick back in 2007 after Flashpoint came out, and then even SPL, and being a fan of all that, and then finally saw the trailer for this. And my first thought was like, was Donnie Yen pulling a Jet Li with Fearless and making this almost his like last period kind of piece here? That was my original thought at the time. And when I finally watched Yip Man 1, I was like, this is pretty good. Like, it was different to see Donnie Yen trying to act as a martial scholar, but at the same time, it's really interesting to see like how they tried to put a historical aspect and everything else. And oh man, like, if I could go back to literally being my 2008 self and talk about exactly how I fanboyed out when I first saw it, it's because all I feel now is just like, now that I watch it, I'm like, I just see all the sequels coming out. Literally the Wilson Yip, Donnie Yen, Yip Man universe, like taking over, and then the side stuff with
so all the sequels kind of tainted it for you?
That
they tainted it a little bit?
The Herman Yao films, the TV series that came, and then the other ones that just like flooded the market of being a whole franchise of just this whole cinematic universe of, you're just like, you can't escape it. Even when Donnie tried to leave it after Yip Man 2, I just thought, like, where was like this purity of like, who can we just have this one film? Because I remember just watching this film, and hopefully there was nothing to capitalize on it after that. Then 2 years later, I went to Hong Kong and saw it in theaters. I saw Yip Man 2 in theaters, and I'm like, okay, Rocky 4. Great. Because it's basically that. But no, when I first watched it, I just remembered like seeing like how he becomes, or not becomes, how he presents himself as this almost high class, because he was a rich man at the time before then, and then if that was historically correct, and then everyone coming to like actually challenge him to say, yeah, we just opened a club, and then he just says, yeah, you opened a club, it's okay, go ahead, but they just want this friendly sparring match. And I thought that was very well done in the story sense of them doing the friendly matches and then going off into Phat Wong's character coming in and just causing a ruckus all over for the other masters, and then Yip Man had to protect the reputation of Fasan, just so that way it's like, yeah, please do it. And Gordon Lam, there are times that I wish he is like not a slimy character like in Paradox most of the time, or even, well, he doesn't play slimy in Infernal Affair, so I can't fault him on that, but he's a really good like actor that really shined in this film of being like so conflicted of working for being Chinese but working for the Japanese, and just having that guilt where he sees his fellow countrymen dying, and then he has no other choice but to watch, and then even slightly having a redemption arc. We're excluding the deleted scene where everyone rose up and beat him to death at the end, but just even like helping, trying to fight back against the sadistic colonel that always shot first, which I was like, you know what, that kind of makes sense, because for a guy to just be a soldier and doesn't understand martial arts and the purity of it, just shooting everybody, I was like, yeah, that's a prime example of just someone just taking a gun and shooting someone, especially when it came to executing Master Lu before the 10-on-1 fight, and just the fact that I remember the dramatic scene after Donnie Yen does the 10-on-1 fight, that he goes to his wife and she just notices his knuckles, even though it's like not the right knuckles that he's doing.
Oh.
Seafood Alex knows it's not the right knuckles. That it shouldn't be these. It should be the bottom ones in Wing Chun. But I just remembered like that one dramatic scene that they talk about where he always practiced, and he just said like, this world is so small, but I'm really useless. And I just felt like, okay, that kind of sense of someone practicing and everything else, as much as they don't feel useless, it's just that kind of lost kind of feel for characterization of actually emulating that. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But then when his friend Simon Yam's character finally gets attacked by Phat Samurai's gang to take over their mill, and then finally he has a purpose, I was like, okay, finally you have a purpose. But on that, I think the negatives is Donnie Yen is just too unstoppable in this film, and he learns nothing. That's the only thing. He's just unstoppable until he gets shot at the end fight, but that's it. He's just
Okay.
It's really it.
Copy that. All right. Kung Fu Santa.
Well then, Donnie was going through a period here. Donnie was becoming the king of Kung Fu cinema. He stayed in Hong Kong. He didn't go to America. China had taken over Hong Kong, but was keeping hands mostly off. It's interesting if you notice when the sequels came out, because as the sequels came out, China was, here's Hong Kong, here's China. And over the years when the sequels were coming out, China was doing this. And so by the end, the subject matter of the films would change, but all of Donnie's situation. Donnie wanted to be respected, and I believe this is the only film in which he was nominated for Best Actor at the Hong Kong Film Awards.
Yeah.
Because he was playing something other than his version of Bruce Lee. He just loves Bruce Lee. He wants to be Bruce Lee. And also his interesting relationship with his co-stars. I don't think it was an Ip Man movie where he cast Vincent Zhao. It might have been.
Kung Fu Jungle, maybe?
No, Special ID.
Special ID.
Was it that?
But then Vincent Zhao found out when he got to the set that his major co-starring role had been reduced to a supporting cameo for all intents and purposes. And so Donnie took over the choreography of his movies to such a degree that even in Kung Fu Jungle, he's unbeatable. He's always unbeatable. He changed the comic book one, Dragon Tiger Gate. So basically, he was playing the Robin role, but he made Robin in that movie Batman, and also made him unbeatable. And in Kung Fu Jungle, there's this Kung Fu assassin who's taking on the greatest fighters in Kung Fu, and he takes care of all of them. And at the end, gives Donnie no problems. Donnie just takes him down. So I'm watching this movie, and I'm quite impressed with this movie because he's playing an actual character. He's not playing his version of Bruce Lee. You'll notice in the sequels that he stops becoming Ip Man or Ip Man and becomes Ip Zombie, Ip Pod Person. I mean, I don't mean to be insulting, I really don't, but in Ip Man 4, did Ip Man have a stroke? I mean, he shows nothing on his face. He is just completely blank. So in this first movie, I got excited. It's beautifully made. The opening half hour, if you wanted to just compare half hours, then I would be voting for Ip Man like crazy for the opening half hour versus the opening half hour A Prodigal Son. The opening half hour, to me, is the movie. Once he says that line, as you pointed out, Alex, it's you. It's not the style. It's not North versus South. It's you. I said, that's all I've ever wanted a Kung Fu movie to tell an audience. You know, what's the best style of Kung Fu? They're all the same. Human body, human mind, the world around it. Rest is money and ego. And here he's saying it's not the style. It's you. But then it's preceded by an awesomely designed and conceived fight. That was frustrating to me. It's still one of my best fights in Kung Fu cinema. It was a bit marred by the original subtitling that Welgo did, where, again, you can distinct limited knowledge. The dubbers, the subtitlers had limited knowledge of Kung Fu. So the kid is supposed to come in and say, Mom says, if you don't start fighting, the house will be ruined. But he doesn't say that in the subtitles. He says something, Mom says, if you start fighting, the house will be ruined. He's supposed to say, if you don't start fighting. As far as the subtitles were concerned, they were watching Donnie and saying, well, he's fighting. He's fighting. Not if you know Kung Fu. He wasn't fighting. He was defending. He was doing defense. He wasn't doing offense yet. So they misunderstood the best joke in the movie. But the fight itself, and again, Louis Fon, who I've met, and George Lamb, who I've met and interviewed, they do a wonderful job supporting him, and Donnie tries to live up to it. But that first fight, I went, oh, this is going to be the greatest movie ever made. And then it turns into a Bruce Lee film. It turns into whichever you want, Fist of Fury. It turns into where it becomes a anti-Japanese movie, and he stops being Ip Man and starts doing Bruce Lee by way of Donnie. You know, I mean, that fighting the 10 guys again, that's right out of
Fist of Fury.
Fist of Fury.
Fist of Fury, yeah.
I mean, he's just doing his version. By the way, this is a wonderful little thing.
Lingerie.
Exactly right, Brad. Give me some lobster. I got my bib. I got my City Wing Chun bib.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'm getting a T-shirt next time I see it. And a sweatshirt. I'm getting all the City Wing Chun clothing, the whole line.
Awesome.
And I got to get my Kung Fu Genius bobblehead. You have one yet?
Not yet, but soon.
Come on,
Definitely.
we got to get you one. But yeah, matter of fact, take over. That's all I have to say. That first fight is still one of the greatest fights of all time, and then it turns into a completely different movie that I've already seen, and I've already seen done better.
Gotcha.
Alex.
All right, Alex.
Yeah, I have to agree with Rick on that. I rewatched Yip Man again for this, and as soon as that fight scene was over with Louis Fan, I was like, I don't really feel like watching the rest of this movie because it has a tonal shift, and it just feels like he becomes, it's not Iron Man, it's IP Man. He's just some superhero with no real character traits anymore. And he was like he was a real character in that first part of the movie. He had struggles where he was a kung fu enthusiast, and he always wanted to entertain the people who came to his came to challenge him, but that would kind of piss off his wife, and then he had the conflicts with not paying enough attention to his son. As a kung fu instructor, I totally understand this, and there was some depth and layer and realness to that. And then the rest of it, he's just an indestructible kung fu fighting machine, as he is for the remaining sequels that come after that. He has no character arc. And it has a certain cachet in a Bruce Lee movie. He's always the same ass kicker at the beginning of the film that he is at the end. But after a while, especially with a character and an older Sifu like Yip Man, I wish that they had retained more of what was present in the first part of that movie, because it just had a lot more heart. And also the thing with the top two knuckles being red after the fight, all the Wing Chun people cringe. It's like, it's the bottom three knuckles we hit with in Wing Chun. That was real amateur hour stuff there. And I mean the 10, fight the 10 karate guys was impressive to see that with Wing Chun choreography instead of kind of Bruce Lee's high kicking, flipping around and stuff. So it was cool to see how they were able to put it together. I thought that from a Wing Chun perspective, there was some very creative choreography going in there, but it felt tonally like it wasn't part of the rest of the movie. That the first exchange he has with the Leo Sifu, the guy who comes to challenge him, where he's kind of very friendly, having an exchange with him, and he can show them that he's better, but he doesn't have to hurt him. That is real high level Wing Chun right there. The other stuff, that would be how a Wing Chun student would fight who was still learning. They would gravitate towards the more brutal end of Wing Chun's character. But the older, aged Sifu should be more like he was at the beginning of the film. And so I wish that they had retained it. But I also feel that, and it's been mentioned before, this film is only tainted in hindsight because of the sequels. If you look at it as a standalone film, it's pretty damn good. Those flaws on this kind of second act notwithstanding, but it's harder to view it in the light of what, like how he just became more and more of a cartoon character with each successive sequel. And to go to what Bobby said, because Lo Mong, the Toad from Five Deadly Venoms, is also a good friend of mine, and I just felt that they did him dirtier in every film. That's a personal thing for me. I mean, in terms of these things as films, I don't know how much people care, but Lo Mong is a friend of mine, and I felt that they made him more and more of a joke as the sequels went by. But I'm going to refrain from saying that because that has nothing to do with Yip Man 1. Yip Man 1 on the whole, it's the only one of the sequels that I can watch again. And so, very entertaining movie. The Wing Chun's done very well. It was scored fantastically well. The music for it was beautiful. The opening scene with the wood dummy and the shadows and the way that it turned, and then you see him practicing on the wood dummy, like that was just so well done. And it would have been interesting if Wong Kar-wai had done his film 10 years earlier, which he had originally promised, is Yap Toi Chung Si in 1997, and then Donnie Yen was originally slated to do a Yip Man movie with Stephen Chow around the same time, where supposedly Stephen Chow was going to play Bruce Lee and Donnie Yen was going to play Yip Man. In an alternate universe, it would have been and that film would have been done in the late 90s. So would have been very interesting to see what that film would have been like back then. Probably better that they waited. And the kind of rivalry with Wong Kar-wai kind of spinning his wheels on making this movie, and then they had the conflict with the name because they wanted to call it Yap Chung Si Yip Man, and then they were like, no, that's too close to our title, and then they just called it Yip Man, and then Wong Kar-wai got the Grandmaster title, and that film is quite different from this one, and they both stand very well on their own. Yip Man, thought it was a great movie. I am definitely a bit nitpicky, and that's all I got to say about that.
All right.
I will bet anyone on this panel as much money as you want to bet no movie with Stephen Chow and Donnie Yen would ever get finished.
Yeah.
I agree.
Conflict between those two
I would agree with you on that.
I would have loved to have been on the set, but carry on.
That's like being on the set of Special ID.
I would have to agree with Eric though, that there's one thing I actually liked about one of the sequels. It was the third one. I actually like the end villain. I like the main villain in the third movie because he was kind of a gray character, kind of similar to Frankie Chan's character, kind of gray. That was one thing I forgot to mention that I loved. Lam Ching-Ying basically kind of calling him out in the Prodigal Son. He's like, no, don't give me this friendship. Not friendship. What do you say? Friendly match bullshit talk. I see them rings on your hands. All right. There's no such thing as a friendly match. No, you don't con me. I actually like that. He kind of called him out.
I also like the fight in the elevator and on the stairs.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I'm always going to stand up for Scott Adkins. I don't care,
Well, I like Scott.
So.
I like Scott. But anyway, I like Eric kind of mentioned that on his channel that we like the villain in the third Ip Man because he was a great character. But yeah, I actually like the villain in the third movie more than this movie, to be honest with you. This villain in this one's kind of very stock. He served its purpose. The good guy's got to beat up the bad guy, and it's entertaining. It's fine. But I like the hint of gray in the third one. But that's about it, really, in terms of positive.
I'm gonna
sequel talk.
show support to the Chung-Tinchi film, which is that character. So I'm gonna show support to that one because that one being a standalone on its own, a spinoff, even though it had to be tied to Ip Man story,
Yeah.
I actually like Master Z.
Like Rick, did you like that?
What's that?
Master Z.
I thought Master Z was okay. My favorite besides Ip Man is still Final Fight.
I agree with that one.
You gotta love Anthony Wong.
Yeah,
Anthony
you know,
Wong, yeah.
Alex, I believe there were more actual Wing Chun fighters on the crew of Final Fight than I think any other Ip Man movie.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
And Anthony Wong actually spoke with a Fasan accent. He tried to portray Yip Man more as he was. That is actually my favorite of all the Yip Man movies is Yip Man. The Final Fight, I think that movie is fantastic. And even though he's not a martial artist, although he did some Dai Seng Pekar, he really decided to study the character. Even the way he smoked the cigarettes was the same way that Yip Man did it. And he's just a much better actor. So, yeah,
Yes.
it's definitely my favorite.
Nice. All right, Eric.
Agreed.
I won't butt in anymore. Go ahead.
No. I'm learning a lot. I remember when this movie came out, Donnie was starting to get on a hot streak, kind of like the second wind of his career. Because I was watching a lot of his older stuff, and I was like, I don't know how much I like this guy. Because if you look at his films between Iron Monkey and SPL, it gets a little rough at times. But some of his earlier stuff is fantastic. I really like In the Line of Duty 4 especially.
Yeah.
But then he started getting on this kind of hot streak, you know. But of course, going into this film, at this point, I had already seen films like Dragon Tiger Gate, where he's just hamming it up with his acting, man. So I was used to seeing Donnie do that style, you know. So I was actually really impressed with his performance in this one. He dialed it down enough to give the character a certain sense of gravitas, which I really appreciated. And, just from a basic storytelling standpoint, I know there's historical inaccuracies, but having the character be, a nice guy, he has some problems between work-life balance, I guess you could say, and then having this catastrophic event happen to his country, and, he has to kind of pick himself up again after losing so much. It's kind of it's an oft-used dramatic ploy, but it works, and it helps to build that dramatic aspect of the film. And also, I liked the change in the color palette. It mutes more as the film goes along. It's almost like moves to like a black and white film at times. The colors drained out of it, which obviously emphasizes kind of like the harrowing atmosphere that they're going for in the events. And then I really liked the choreography in it. A lot of people talk about that 1 versus 10 fight, but I think my favorite fight is the one with Siu-Wong. That's my favorite fight in the movie. He goes in there and
That's right.
you set up Fan's character, and I really like how he's mowing through dudes. He's like, come on, is there anybody around here that can freaking hang with me, baby? And then, he goes in there and he doesn't give up. You think the fight's over 2 or 3 times, but he gets back up and he continues, which I like to see in a fight sometimes. It gives it a certain length. And when it finally ends, I have this sense of satisfaction to it. So that's actually my favorite fight in the movie. I mean, you got Donnie Yen versus Ricky O, baby. I mean, that's just money. That's a money fight. And then we get some Johnny Toe regulars, Simon Yam and Gordon Lam, which, I'll watch Simon Yam at freaking anything. And then I was surprised at the casting of the Japanese villain, Hiroyuki Ikuchi, because I saw some of his films before this, and I was kind of confused. I'm like, really? He's being cast as the lead villain in this? Because he was in some of Kiyoshi Kurosawa's films, like Charisma, which I really loved. And he was in a bank heist comedy called Space Travelers that was really good, the Japanese film. So he's not really an action star. So I think he did handle himself well. I think if they would have extended the fight a little bit more, he could have handled it. But he's just so people know, if people don't know the actor, he's just not known for like his action roles. So, I was kind of surprised that he actually handled it as well as he did in this film. So, yeah, I think overall, I really enjoy it. I think the pacing is good. You know what I mean? Although I do say, and I say this sometimes with this one, is that because of the Japanese occupation angle to it. It has more of a harrowing, downbeat vibe to it at points in the second half. Whereas some of the sequels have a little bit more of a breezy vibe, which if somebody wants to shove popcorn in their face and drink a beer, I think that the sequels don't have the dramatic impact, but they might be, they have a more even tone and lighter tone to some of them, especially part 3. But I really enjoyed this one. It's just a solid flick.
Nice. All right, Bobby.
Oh, okay. So for me, again, I just felt it's the first one was very well done, and I think they should have just left it at that. As a standalone film, I think Donnie portrayed the character well. My favorite version of Ip Man would have to be the one with Chow San, Anthony Wong. Again, as Alex stated, the characteristics that he portrayed of Ip Man, he tried to bring the character true to life. I felt as though Donnie was more of a heroic type of stature for this film, as opposed to portraying it as if Ip Man really was. I think Siu-Wong stole the show. We'll pay. When he was ripping his house apart, I'll pay. Let's go. Keep going. I love that. Also, Tony Leung, former president of the Hong Kong Stuntmen's Association, was in that film as well. I worked with him on a film in Mexico, but I liked his scene as well. So I think that the 10-man fight scene, it was enjoyable, but when I use, like, the name of the show was Versus, and for the sake of the subject with Wing Chun, I would have to, again, for purist sake, the action wasn't gimmicky in Prodigal Son, but again, we have wire work in Ip Man 1, whereas the physical nature of what the actors do in Prodigal Son, it's them. And the fight on the table at the end of the movie, or the platform at the end of the movie with the Japanese fighter, I felt that the Japanese fighter was underserved in that particular battle. I felt it was a highlight moment for Donnie per se, but here, throw some moves so I can do this, basically. And I shouldn't, you don't want to get that type of a feeling when you're in an action sequence. I felt as though, say, Frankie Chan versus Ching-Ying, that was pure martial arts versus martial arts, and it wasn't gimmicky. The Phoenix Eye, Tiger Claw, Frankie did it really evoked the true essence of Kung Fu. I just felt like the table thing at the edge, it's cinematic, granted, but again, it's commercialized. To me, it's the Fast and Furious of Kung Fu films. So I take away from it that for me, it was a typical Donnie vehicle for me. In that respect, when you're talking versus like the pure aspect of Prodigal Son, and then when Anthony Wong Chow San did his version, I was actually floored with that. I enjoyed that a lot. Action wise, I actually like the one that Dennis To did too. I mean, that's just me. But yeah, that's my version of
Kyle, you're right. All right, he is a kung fu rascal back there, so it's okay. Well said, Bobby. Well said. All right, Frank.
True story. When I went to see Ip Man 3 at Berkeley Shattuck Cinema, the guy in front of me at the box office actually said, 2 tickets for IP Man 3, please. True story. True story. This is a frustrating series for me, because it has some good stuff in almost every single film.
Yeah.
But overall, the film themselves, to me, aren't very satisfactory. I'll start with the sequels. Like the second film, I really enjoyed the Sammo Hung choreography. I thought those are brilliant. All the action sequences in that film. The table fight with Lo Mang and then Sammo, and then the fish market fight. I mean, those are all nicely choreographed, and there's this signature Sammo Hung style there. Even though they're not Wing Chun all of the time, but still, they were done with your typical, the typical standard Sammo Hung quality that I find very appealing. the third film, you have Yuen Ping sort of as the action director, even though supposedly Donnie Yen did a lot of improvisation on that film. Like, we mentioned before, the elevator fight, the stairway fight, that's fantastic. The final fight with Max Zhang, good stuff.
Yeah.
And then the last film, I thought Scott Adkins was the best thing about the film. He plays an ultra racist, but he can fight, and in many ways he was really, Donnie Yen's equal in that film, and those fights were nice, and it was good to watch. And I thought Scott did a fantastic job. So now going back to this first film, I agree. The first half an hour is like the best. It's really good. Really good pacing, really good story, interesting storyline. I thought Siu-Wong, Louis Fan's character was the most fascinating. To have this northerner coming here to challenge all these southern Fasan kung fu masters. It's such a nice theme of saying northern versus southern kung fu. I find that very enjoyable. And then like Louis Fan is as Hong Kong as you get, but he play what we call a Moi Sang Lo, a foreigner. I mean, not a foreigner, but northerner, and he did a great job. He looked just like some guy from like the north, coming in, like this rough guy, muscular, strong, and his, he really can fight. I really wish they could have done more of him in the later part of the film. I thought that once his challenging part of the story was over, I somehow felt that the filmmakers didn't know what to do with his character, only to have him show up later, a little bit for a little bit.
Filmmakers knew what to do. Donnie didn't want him in it.
Exactly. Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
he doesn't want anybody to overshadow him, right?
Yeah.
Right. So but once that Guy has a good point. But once that Japanese invasion storyline popped in, and Rick knows my feelings about Hong Kong China co-production. From that on, that felt to me almost like your standard example of why I personally felt that whenever you have the Hong Kong China co-production, it just killed the creativity of it. Because they wanted to showcase how evil the Japanese people are, the Japanese invasion, the army, the bad guy. They wanted to show how horrible the Chinese people suffered. How bad they all, they had like Donnie has to, move away. They're living in poverty. He have to go work at a mine, coal mine or what have you, and then you start stirring up this patriotic feeling of look at the Japanese people killing all of our Chinese kung fu masters. And of course, we must have Donnie Yen coming in, do a Chinese Connection part 2.0, right? The 1 in 10, the one beat 10, and then beating the Japanese guy. Like the final fight exactly. Why couldn't we have the Japanese villain give Donnie a bit more harder time until he fights back? We can't because we have to show that Chinese kung fu is better. Japanese kung fu cannot stand a chance against Wing Chun. And then you have all these. After we have all these moment of crowd coming in, with the assassination, and then the crowd stirring up emotion, pushing toward the soldiers, and then you have all these captions saying, "Oh, the Chinese never die, or spirit never die, or Japanese surrender," all that. And also, he went to Hong Kong because he wanted to escape from the communists, not because of the Japanese thing. And besides, by then, World War II is over, right? I mean, the invasion is over. So to me, that kind of just ruined the whole plot line for me. And then the fights, the first 1/3, all that fights with Louis Fan and Combat, those are just wonderfully choreographed. But then once you switch with the Japanese angle came in, to me, it was less martial arts, right? Compared with Prodigal Son, to me that's not martial art. It's almost just like I don't know. It didn't feel like a real kung fu fight to me. And then this, I know a lot of people love this, but it became sort of like a parody too. People started making fun of that in some of the other films, and I just felt that this didn't sit too right with me. Still, I liked the first half an hour. I thought those are all great. And then one other thing was, because of the fact that this was a Hong Kong China co-production, you have all these different actors, some from China, some from Hong Kong, right? So everybody has to dub. They all have to dub. They basically shot they didn't shoot this with live sound. Everybody has to dub their voices later, even though, like, let's say, even you have Donnie Yen, Simon Yen, right? They still have to dub their own voices later on because they couldn't just take their voice live and then blend in with dubbing, Cantonese dubbing of the main actors because it wouldn't match. You would sense the different ambience right away. So the whole soundtrack, all the dialogues, they were all post dubbed in the studio, and that to me created this hollow effect, which was not very convincing. It felt like everybody just talking in a room, you know. I mean, yeah, their exterior sound, their background sound is ambient, but you just felt like you could just tell these were all studio bound. They were all dubbed. They were all speaking in the studio. You couldn't feel. There's no sense of presence compared with the dubbing in the Prodigal Son. You know, everybody's dubbed in Prodigal Son too, but it gave you this impression that they're in the Peking Opera Theater. Yeah, they're outdoors. They're in the room. They're in Samuel's home. I didn't get that sense here. I just felt that everybody just dubbing their voices. I mean, like so everything's happening in the same room with no different environmental sound, and that kind of took me out of the movie quite a bit. So,
hey Frank, if I could just make a point on that, because it's almost like I had this problem when I was watching Chinese Odyssey 2002, and I rewatched it a few weeks ago. And, you know, it has two options for my DVD. It's got the Mandarin and the Cantonese. Problem is you have 4 lead actors, 2 of which spoke Mandarin, 2 of which spoke Cantonese.
right.
So either I watch the Mandarin dub where 2 of the Cantonese actors are dubbed in Mandarin, or I watch the Mandarin dub where 2 of the, you know what I mean?
Right.
I was almost like, even just include a third one and just have both languages there. I can't listen to these actors being dubbed.
Which is why I love Wong Kar-wai film so much. He didn't care. You know, in the Wong Kar-wai world, everybody understands each other, right?
Yeah.
You have a Japanese character speaking Japanese, the other guy understands, and he reply Mandarin. You know, it doesn't matter. The multicultural, multi-language world in Wong Kar-wai's film. So that to me was very interesting, fascinating to watch. But the best thing about it is they were all recorded live. So that was the voices talking on the set, and it just brings you in his world so much more than hearing an obviously dubbed soundtrack. That really took me out.
Especially with good actors, it really hurts.
Right.
All right. Copy.
I tell you, when they brought Mike Tyson in, that lost me right there. I just felt that scene was just so commercialized and unmotivated, and I just couldn't understand it. It really devalued that particular episode, and it just went downhill from there. It just seemed like they were trying to find the next gimmick. I mean, when Max Zhang entered the program, he was actually very good. I mean, that actually brought it back to the Kung Fu versus Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Yep. Right.
Oh, perfect freeze frame right there.
But it's just gimme, and then relying more on wire work as opposed to
even in the first film,
Kung Fu.
there was some obviously wire move, but they were done not right. They were done nicely. Right, exactly. They were done not too bad, not too excessively.
Right.
Yeah.
It's okay if it's to enhance, but when you lean on it, it just becomes too noticeable.
Bobby,
Rick, say what you say.
No, you used the magic word. The magic word is devalue. They want what's happening with the Chinese Film Bureau now is they're trying to devalue Kung Fu because Kung Fu requires individuals being able to excel. That's not something the Film Bureau wants. It wants everybody lining up and being all together. That's why they canceled Wolf Warrior 3. Coming out tomorrow on Hi-Ya streaming platform is the new Philip Ng movie, Undercover Punch and Gun. And I recommend everybody take a look at it because that may be the last one ever made. Because the Film Bureau do not want Kung Fu anymore. And it's a ridiculous movie with some great Kung Fu-ish flavored martial arts.
Sweet.
So check that out. It shows up tomorrow. But if you can chart the humanization, the degrading, the devaluing of Kung Fu in Chinese cinema for basically since The Final Master. The Final Master may be the last completely authentic kung fu movie that's ever come out of China.
But
Now,
also,
yeah, go ahead.
also, I mean, also the manipulative nature of it. You know, like even in the Yin Man series. You know, like in the first film, the family part with him and his wife. I mean, there's already a little bit of melodrama that I personally kind of felt, enough already. Do we really need all this? And by Ip Man 3, it's like is to a ridiculously high level.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And it's
Thank
because-
you. Somebody else is finally agreeing with me with the whole family
and
schmamly
it's
thing.
because
Like Bobby said, it's the Fast series, so it's got to be about the family.
and it's because they did it to cater to the mainland Chinese audiences because they love melodramatic shit.
They're not catering to the audience. They're catering to the Bureau. They're catering
that too.
to the film bureau.
Right.
So
Right.
if you really want to get a lump in your throat and shed a tear, watch the most recent 2 Vincent Zhao Huang Fei Hong films. That's just like clinical attack on kung fu genre.
Also, I saw the latest Yun Biu. Yun Biu recently make a movie called Operation Bangkok, and I saw that again. There's all these melodramatic scenes of mom crying over the dead kids, or family members crying over their dead family members. It's like I don't need. If I want to see this, I go see a drama. I want to see action in an action film. I don't need 15 minutes of this.
I do silent interviews with Choi Hark now. The last 2 times I saw Choi Hark, I would just hold up a little note which I would then destroy, so it couldn't be traced to him, and I just watched his face in reaction. It is so difficult for good filmmakers to make movies in China now. So they'll do whatever the Bureau will allow them to do.
Yeah.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for like a Hong Kong director or set of directors to say, you know what, screw this. I'm making a movie for like $1 million, $2 million, just a, basic fighting movie in the city. I'm going to have mainland officials being the villains, and we're going to have Hong Kong people be the good guy, and just give a big this. Would that be possible?
Under the new national security law, forget it.
That's a lofty request. Won't happen.
Especially to the people who hold your film in their hands. Your film will never get out unless they approve it.
Right.
Again,
there's a reason why Johnny To hasn't made a carbon robber film in 5 years.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
And also, Wolf Warrior 2 was the most successful movie in Chinese film history. Wolf Warrior 3 was canceled, not by Wu-Jing.
Even if you said I'm only releasing this in Hong Kong, it still wouldn't work.
They cannot recoup. Not enough box
Hong Kong
office.
is China. It's not Hong Kong anymore. It's ruled by China.
Yeah, but if you keep the budget to $1 million
Hong Kong's
bucks,
dead.
you couldn't make $1 million
It will
bucks.
never come out.
Okay.
It has to be approved by
Hong
the
Kong is
Chinese
gone.
Film Bureau.
It's age old lot. Frank, tell him Hong Kong.
Hong Kong is lost, okay? Hong Kong is lost. Believe me.
Let me do my impersonation of a Hong Kong citizen who is over 21. This is my impersonation of a Hong Kong citizen who's over 21. They're always looking over their shoulder to see who's listening, because there is always someone listening, whether you're on your phone or whether you're in public.
You have to install a tracking app now, where if you go see a movie theater, you have to use that app, check in yourself, and go to the movie theater. So now imagine, let's say a movie theater in Hong Kong dared to show like a documentary about the Hong Kong protest 2 years ago. You went in, you check in with your app, you went in and saw the documentary. Let's say 3 months later, the government said it's illegal to watch this documentary. They started looking through the app to see who actually went to see this documentary. Do you think they're going to come after you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And also, even if the Hong Kong guy came to America to do it, no American would support that film either, because they all want to have the Chinese box office.
Yep. All right.
Even if you do it, and also, how suicidal are you? I mean, even if you do it on your phone and use, and put it up online, if you're Chinese, you can't go home again.
So you don't even have to be Chinese. The law is supposed to be global. That's what they said. You can be a gaijin, you're criticizing them, and you can be in trouble. Technically,
By the way, we could all be in trouble now, but you guys can blame it on me.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate
thanks, Rick.
it.
I think I'm the oldest one amongst them.
If you don't see next week's verses, if you don't see next week's verses, you know what happened. All right.
I had to ask the question. I just had to know that there was a 0% chance. I just had to know if it was zero. Now I know.
But then the thing is, there are still 100% Hong Kong production.
You got a better chance of having lunch with Moses tomorrow. It's not happening.
Okay.
But, pal, there are still 100% Hong Kong budget production. Don't get me wrong. There are still films that were made 100% Hong Kong budget.
But
from people, but the subject matter is definitely not going to be kung fu. It's going to be about whatever's happening in Hong Kong.
It's still got to be approved. And by the way,
not by China's censors though.
Yeah, if China gets to me, I will be on next week's episode. But I'll be doing this. China's great. I was badly educated. I've been properly re-educated.
That was not me last week.
And you'll
that was hilarious. But yeah, I'm glad, Frank, you brought that up. Just to rewind a little bit earlier about the family drama, just and what's interesting is in the same, because I rewatched it today, and Rick, you were right about that subtitle. They did botch that.
Yeah.
Because I watched it today, and it was like they screwed it up.
Start fighting, the house will be ruined.
Right. But Frank, the whole family melodrama thing, it's weird because in the first Yip Man movie, it's resolved. You even have, because the whole movie she's looking at him like, you got to do martial arts again? Oh, God, right? But even by the end, she breaks down and cries, and she says, I should have understood more what he was all about, what he's trying to do. And then they turn the truck around, right? And she goes to meet up with him at the end. But in the sequels, I was like, oh, I guess we forgot about all that understanding. And it's just me. Oh, you got to go fight again? Oh. I was like,
you know what? I have cancer now. I'm dying. Oh.
Remember, he was fighting for his one self of family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So less of this, right? Oh, he's got to fight again. Oh, and more of this.
Here we go.
Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! Oh, let's see that again just for fun. Oh, Samurai's bloodthirsty. Oh no! Oh Jesus!
I'm going to be. Let's vote.
I love it. You ready? You guys ready? All right. We'll start with Kyle. I'll be last because it's fun that way. Actually, let's do something a little different this time. Let's show the audience voting poll first. I usually save for the end, or if we need to break a tie. Here you go. And repeat again, Eric, what you said, what we were talking about earlier. The voting poll last time was mostly based off of what? We were talking about it earlier. What was it, Rick?
Or Eric? You said Eric.
I said Eric, but you can
based
answer
off
that.
Of
modern
recency bias.
Recency bias, yeah. So I think that's what this is right here. You ready? Check this out.
100%.
Oh boy!
Of course.
I figured.
Wow.
But basically, that's saying 89% of them saw Ip Man and 11% of them saw Prodigal Son.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nobody.
So, out of curiosity, I always like to post these for fun. But all right, let's get into it. Who's gonna win tonight's versus? Kyle, who you got?
So I almost went into a tangent, so I'm gonna expose my tangent just slightly. So I appreciate Yip Man, almost bringing this boost into, I would say, learning into people wanting to learn Wing Chun after that. And see if Alex, if you agree on that, did it almost like promote Wing Chun even more after Yip Man came out? Because it definitely
we get tons of new students every time one of these comes out. We get floods of new, usually Chinese students join after these movies come out. Oddly enough.
So definitely after Yip Man 2, I did go out and learn a version of Wing Chun in my city of Winnipeg in Canada and studied it for 7 years. And then, but I would say watching this original film over and over again, it has that kind of vibe of like, yes, modernization of like, you see how it could be shot now, but when you look at an actual character and story wise, I'll still go with The Prodigal Son, because honestly, it has character. It has like a story that you could really appreciate. So my vote is honestly The Prodigal Son.
All right. Ip Man, right?
No, 30 minutes of Ip Man. 104 minutes of Prodigal Son.
There you go. All right. Prodigal Son for Rick. Alex?
Bite that tight. Prodigal Son, 100% all the way.
All right. Eric?
I've only seen Prodigal Son twice. In 5 years, ask me again. I might change my mind. I'm actually going with Ip Man on pure entertainment value.
All right. There you go. Nice. Nice. Bobby?
Makes it interesting. Oh, I'm going to have to go with Ip Man, of course. No, I'm sorry.
You got me there. You actually got me there for a second.
Right? Prodigal Son, without a doubt.
Right. Copy that. Frank?
Hands down.
So I mean, to be honest, I was disappointed by that poll. I mean, 11 versus 89 is like, what the heck? I mean, so I guess I can spill a little secret if only to get people to watch this film. There will be an upcoming release of a remastered Blu-ray of The Prodigal Son.
Yes.
They to be determined, but it's coming, folks. All right, it's coming. I mean, like, before the show, I rewatched both films to refresh my memory a bit. And for Ip Man, every time I finish watching a fight, I skip to the next fight.
Yeah.
Okay, I finished the film in like half an hour. Prodigal Son, the moment I started watching it, I couldn't stop. I kept watching. I couldn't fast forward. The dialogue was great. It was an original story. The premise was great. Acting was great. I mean, the fight's astonishing. So, hands down, Prodigal Son for me.
Yeah. All right.
No comparison.
All right. Still love it, man, but this is just a classic. I can't help it. It's like a warm hug, this movie. It's like, come here, Prodigal Son. Oh, yeah. I love it. So today's winner is...
Yes.
All right. Nice. Tonight was fun. Yeah. Oh, you like it,
cool.
Bobby?
Awesome.
Come back anytime, my friend.
Oh, yeah,
Next week, we can announce it now.
I haven't seen Frank in so many years. It's just I'm just so happy to see Frank, Alex, my brother Rick. My God, I'll tell you a little quick thing. The first interview Samuel ever did in the United States was done with Rick Myers.
Wow, look at
first one ever. Since it was Rick Myers. Remember that, Rick? Hotel Maria.
I will never forget it. And every time Samuel sees me and I see Samuel now, I'm just gratified by his reaction, because it's invariably at the end of the day when he's talking to ignorant American reporters, and I walk in and he lights up. It's just like, let's talk.
Funny. It's funny because Samuel was like, I'm coming to America. I want to do movies. I'm set me up with some interviews. The first person I called was Rick Myers. The only person. Yep.
Look at that. Awesome. But this was fun. Yep. This is a lot of fun, guys. It's great having these badasses here on the channel. Next week's...
Pleasure to meet you, my friend.
Oh, Kyle, he's talking to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Robert. Thank you so much.
Awesome to have all these badasses on the panel tonight. Tonight was a lot of fun. Next week, if you want to return, that's right, we're doing Once Upon a Time in China versus Once Upon a Time in China 2, baby. That's going to be next. That's another hard one. But that's next Thursday. So make chat, Movie Dojo Army. Thanks for watching. You can follow all of these badasses. You can find them on Facebook, all the social medias. That's right. Make sure you follow Rick Myers' podcast, buy his book, buy all the Eureka Blu-rays that Frank is a part of. Support Bobby's upcoming movie. We're going to have a panel here in the future. We're going to talk about it. We're going to have fun talking about it. Plug it again one more time, Bobby. The name of the movie.
Made in Chinatown starts May 11th. It's distributed by Vision Films. And August 11th, my birthday, it's released overseas.
All right. There you go.
Also with
Awesome.
Master Ching-Ying in the film.
That's right.
There you go. Made
It's a
in
funny
Chinatown.
film. You enjoy it.
Yeah. Made in Chinatown. Make sure you guys watch it, pay for it, buy it, support Bobby. And it looks badass. It looks like a lot of fun. It looks hilarious. I can't wait to watch it and talk about it with you in the future. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. We're going to do this again. Quick segue for tomorrow's guests is we're going horror. We're switching it from kung fu to horror tomorrow. We're going to have, me and my homie Cryptic Soul, we're going to have director McLaughlin, and actor C.J. Graham. That's right, Jason Voorhees himself. Jason, Friday the 13th, Jason Lives, Part 6, my favorite in the franchise. I love that movie so much because it's both a satire of slasher and an homage, and I absolutely love it. It's a blast. So that's tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Make sure you guys show up, and we're going to have some fun talking horror movies. All right, guys. We see all you badasses next time.
Yes.
And if anybody messes with you, put that thumb right here. Do that.
You
all right?
made a what?
All right, guys. Take care.
Peace.
You said we could curse. What are we doing? You said